Swami Kailasananda, an Acharya from Europe, France, remembers Swami Vishnu-devananda.
So I first met Swami Vishnu-devananda actually in the TTC. When I took the TTC in Europe. This was the first TTC we had in Europe in '85. And I had very little practice of yoga. I'd done yoga on my own with books, but not really any formal training. But I'd been to India, I was like 19 or 20. And I'd been to India on my own. Somehow I had an inspiration, and I stayed in India for like 7 or 8 months. I did everything except yoga in India. But when I came back, my country really had an influence on me, and I thought, why do I want to study philosophy at the university? And I thought, this is not really what I want to do, be a philosophy teacher. So I started thinking, what do I want to do with my life? And I basically locked myself in a room for 3 days. I said, I'm not going to come out until I have an answer. And somehow after 3 days I had this inspiration, I want to be a yoga teacher. So I started to call, this was in Paris, all the yoga centers in Paris. And most of them I had an answering machine on the phone, so the answer was clear, it was not the right place. And finally I called the Shivananda Center. And guess who I had on the phone? So my Shivananda, he doesn't remember that, but it was not even a Swami, so this is Shivananda on the phone. I said, okay. And then I asked about the center and the activities, and I said, I really am interested in becoming a yoga teacher. He said, oh, he said, that's very good, we will teach children in Constantine in 1 week. In France, in Spain, this is the first time we do it in Europe, why don't you join? I said, okay. I had no clue of anything, what that meant, or really no idea. So I just registered, and I came to that famous place. This was a camping. I don't know if some of you went in that course. It was interesting. What was it called? Bayonas. It was like a camping place that we rented. Half of it was for the TTC, and the other half was Spanish people on holiday. So it was to go to the restaurant, we had to cross that part, and it was really a good experience of Maya on the way. Anyway, in the TTC, everything was in a greenhouse. There was no building, obviously. Everybody was in tents, so very, very simple. And so Vishnu-devananda was there. He was teaching in that course, and I never heard of him. I didn't know anything. And he was teaching the main lectures. So first, I no idea who he was. So I thought, okay, this person has a lot of energy, obviously, but he was talking completely over my head. And what I remember, mainly the lectures, he was speaking so much about the cities at some point, about everything you can experience on the astral planes, and that you be very careful about the cities. And I was thinking, my problem is my knees and my back, really the cities is not my problem right now. Why is he talking about this? Anyway, I went through the course, I finished it, and I really, really enjoyed it, and so much so that I decided to change. I was taking philosophy, and then I switched to Sanskrit after that, and I started to study Sanskrit at the university. I said, this is really what I want to do. I became a resident at the Paris Center, and I really felt that connection with Swamiji from the start. And then I was a resident for 2 years at the Paris Center, and I was working on my master, and then Swami-devananda then came to the center for about 6 months, and then I don't know what happened. You were sent, somebody sent you to New York, and then there was nobody to direct the center. So Swami-devananda came from Munich, I think, and I was left with like 2 young staff at the center, and she said, you have to stop your studies and be in charge of the center. So I said, oh really? So my first day on staff, I was basically in charge of the center, with very little clue or experience, together with another staff, Omkari, who was there. And then I spent a few months at the Paris Center, and another phone call was, now you're sent to Canada. So that was a bit of a shock. It was already not so easy to manage in Paris, and the next news I was sent to Canada. Middle of the winter, I arrived, lots of snow everywhere, not many staff, and I was not too sure when I first arrived. But the wonderful thing is that Swami Vishnu was there. So finally I ended up staying for 4 years here, at 3 years here, and then 1 year at the Montreal Center. And it was a real training experience for me. First hand, it was wonderful to have so much contact with Swami Vishnu-devananda. Was mainly in the office, and he would come every day at the office, and I would have to read the mail, and sometimes I would go to his house, and like Swami just said, it was already after his accident, his stroke. So he already had that speech impediment. It was not so easy to understand him. So when there was his secretary with him was okay because she could repeat for me, but sometimes I was alone and I was really praying. I would understand. Most of them I did not understand what he was saying. So I would read him the mail and he would say answer this and this. And so I would say, sorry, Swamiji, I did not understand. So he would repeat once and then silence because again I did not understand. And then he would, of course, understand that I did not understand. So he said, did you understand? I said, no. So like this, it was a real training in tuning, to understand beyond what you hear, from the voice, to get it from the mind, really. So stressful, but a very good training. Once I remember after 10 tries, he got really impatient. And then he started to shout in a very clear voice that I could fully understand, please send prasad to this person. Okay, I got it completely clear, so he could speak completely clearly if he wanted to make the effort. But it was like a training. So there was a lot of training like this going on, and I really learned a lot from those 3 years here at the camp. And it was actually not my first time when I came to the camp. I forgot before that. I did the ATTC, and I also had a lesson from him. This was the year after the TTC in '86. I was not staff yet, I was just a resident at the Paris Center. And the director of the center told me, why don't you go a few days early, you can do some karma yoga. I said, oh, okay, why not, it's a good idea. So I arrived like 2-3 days before the TTC, and then I said, okay, I come for some karma yoga. And the director of the ashram at that time said, oh, do you know reception? And I said, well, I thought, like at the Paris Center, I was making crosses on Petra's card. I said, yes, I know how to do that. So this is what it meant. I said, oh, very good, because the receptionist is just leaving in 15 minutes and we need somebody to be in charge of the reception. So I just said very innocently, I had no clue what that meant, okay. And then they sent me to that box, when it was downstairs, that reception before. And then that person who left was this Uma from Jamaica, and she had 15 minutes to explain me everything. So it was a real crash course, and I retained only 5% of what she told me. So the 3 days were an absolute disaster, with all the possible mistakes. She told me, because this is a phone system, this number is this person, that number is that person. I had no clue who all these people were. She said, that number never press. It's just Swami Vishnu-devananda, don't press here. The first thing I did when there was a phone call that I had to transfer, wrong button, I pushed that button, and I had somebody on the phone and said, who is this? I got so panicky that I just put the phone down. So a few things like this. And then I made all the possible mistakes. I sent the guests in some special guest room who were just made ready for them. They came back, it's very nice, you put so many nice things in the room, like snacks and everything. They've just been sent in the wrong room, and catastrophe. And one thing she had told me, she said, oh, by the way, you also need to feed the fishes. There was this aquarium next to the reception before. And that instruction, among everything else, I really forgot. Once I remembered, and then I went to the aquarium and I tried to open the thing where the food was, and it was locked. So I said, okay, somebody else must be in charge, and then I left it. And then the TTC started, and I was so relieved when the course started, and I could just focus on the lecture and forget about the reception. And the first lecture, main lecture, maybe like half an hour after it started, somebody came on the stage and spoke to the person giving the lecture, and then that person looked at me and said, Swami Vishnu wants to speak to you. I said, oh my God, what did I do? So, middle of the lecture, I go to the house, and there was a big meeting there, and all the Swamis were there, Srinivasan was there. I looked at the situation, I said something really serious was going on, because Swami Vishnu looked very upset. And he was shouting at everybody, and I thought, I must be part of this also. Anyway, the issue was that one fish had died. Really, personally, I don't think I was responsible after 2 days for the death of that fish, but it happened that Swami Vishnu wanted to know the whole story, what happened with the fishes. And then they came back, to tracing it back that I was supposed to feed the fishes. And so Swami Vishnu looked at me and he said, "Do you forget to eat?" Then, of course, I said no. And then there was a silence which what felt to me like 2 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. He just looked at me, didn't say anything. And then that was it. No more anger. And then he shouted at Srinivasa and Swami Shankar, everybody else. So I got that message, that message of taking care. And even though, there was all this stress, not to forget, and to remember to take care of others. And I don't know whether you remember that story, but after that, when I was at the Montreal Center, again we had an aquarium. I said, "Oh my God, here we go again, fishes." And then one night in the Montreal Center, I think 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, in the middle of the night, so Vishnu called and he said, "Are you feeding the fishes?" So somehow that lesson came again, and at that time I was not forgetting anymore. It was really some scar in my head. Feeding the fishes. So lessons like this that you don't forget. And so it just comes to my mind now. What I was in the office and I was reading all the mail, and he'd be stressed again that he would understand what I say, because sometimes I would read a whole letter, and then at the end he would tell the secretary, "I don't understand her accent." He had not stopped me at all during the whole letter. Anyway, I was repeating again and stress. And then he was already on the wheelchair. And then he left the room, and then he asked the secretary to bring the wheelchair back again, and he faced me and he told me, "Breathe." And I still remember this word now. Just relax, really. Relax. Breathe. Yeah. Learn how to relax, as we do. So very simple instructions, so simple, basics of yoga, but that really help for me to become more calm and not so stressed in these situations. And just one more small memory which comes back to my mind is, in the winter, there were just a small handful of staff here, a few guests coming. And this was the year, I think, 89 or something, where Swami Vishnu started doing the Bhagavatam. Every evening, one evening, he announced we're going to read the Bhagavatam in the evening satsang. And he brought that book, that old version, that English translation of the 19th century, which is hardly understandable, the English. And I remember the translators that were also trying to translate, and we really looked at one another trying to figure out and to translate that very difficult text. But anyway, the whole summer, every night, we read the Bhagavatam, and then in the winter also. And we would go to Swami Vishnu-devananda's house. It was like minus 25 outside, and we would go into his house. It was like minus 25, so 50 degrees difference. And we would sit in his little room, and we would be reading doing some Likita Japa first, and then reading the Bhagavatam, first Sanskrit and then the translation. And Swami Vishnu, like, the whole time was crying with devotion. And the few guys from Montreal who had no clue what was going on, they got worried. They said, "Is he very sad for something?" I said, No, he's okay. Just devotion. So that depth of devotion, that sincerity of his devotion for God, for Krishna, for the Divine Mother, was so touching. It was in the room, like you could feel it, the devotion to God. So very cherished memories. Thank you. Om Namah Shivaya.